Hi, today's guest is classical music photographer Frances Marshall. She's been working in the industry for over a decade, and clients include some of the world's greatest classical musicians and arts organisations. In 2017, she formed Marshall Light Studios with design director Sophie Light, providing creative design services. Hi, Fran, how are you?
Hello!
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for including me in this. It's a brilliant idea.
Delighted you're here. Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm in our home in London. We are in Honor Oak Park, Southeast London. Absolutely love it. Yeah, but
and who are you stuck with at the moment?
We're here now. I'm stuck. I'd be shocked for saying not at all. No, I'm with my partner Sophie and our two cats.
And I'm just going to make the point here that we're recording this on the 2nd of June, which is officially Blackout Tuesday. And I know we talked previously about everything going on, and I just wondered, if you might give us some insight into, your thoughts into what's happening and how it sort of affects all of us, really.
Like, as I say, I'm a photographer. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a politician. And I think the most important thing to remember is that this is an extremely complicated situation, and the worst thing we can do is simplify it. I don't see this situation improving in any way until we stop seeing it as a diversity issue and identify it for what it is, which is a white problem. I don't think anything can move on until we start seeing that. It's our responsibility to fix this.
Yeah.
That won't be overnight, but we have an enormous responsibility to educate ourselves and to read and to listen, because we have been wrong. I just can't believe the brutality that I've seen on the feeds. It's just absolutely devastating. I can't actually get my head around it. And this whole idea with lockdown and people saying they're bored and not knowing what to do. Okay, well then read, educate ourselves, we have to do it. And whether you believe that you have been a perpetrator in this situation, whatever, it's not even about that. It's just about recognizing that you have benefited from this system, whether you realize it or not, and to be tiny little decisions through your life that you never even knew were happening, that we have sort of has come together in this one word, privilege, that we're all experiencing right now. And it's been highlighted to us in a way it's very in your face and very necessary, and I've seen so much criticism of these protests that are happening around the world, and they're so important, and there's huge criticism around looting and riots and all these things. And all I sort of can say about that is, sitting here in my house as a gay woman, engaged to my partner, planning very safely, I'm able to do that because of the rights of Stonewall. I'm able to do it for the rights of the LGBT activists, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even recently, with Ireland and gay marriage, legalizing gay marriage and all that. And that all happened from riots, and it's really necessary, because if you're in a situation where you don't feel that your husband is safe, that your child is safe, that one of the first conversations you have to have with your kid before he or she walks out that door is that if you see a policeman, to raise your hands in the air and say, I don't have a gun, or whatever, that's one of the first conversations you have to have with your kid before they walk out the door.
I have to say, as a mum myself, that it's reading the stories like that about parents actually going for walks with their children to keep them safe, that with their child, they feel safer. And I have to say, as a parent, I'm so shocked by it, because I suppose it's never really, it's never occurred to me that people feel like that. And it's devastating, absolutely devastating.
Yeah. And that's the bit that comes in under the privilege. We've never had to ever think that way.
Exactly.
I've never had to consider that I'm white. I've never had to think about that. And it just floors me, I watched a video last night that of a policeman beating, like a huge guy beating a 14-year-old kid on the street.
I saw that.
For having a cigar in his hand or something. Like, it was unbelievable. And being filmed and not thinking that there would be any consequence. I think that's the other bit. That's the systemic part of it. And I do believe that, you know, everybody can make this difference, you know, and there's no way that I'm sitting here comparing being gay to being black. I am not, you know, I'm not doing that at all, because it is such a bigger deal. You know, I can't put myself in that shoe. But when I saw the change in Ireland around the gay vote, you know, what people who I watched vote yes for gay marriage, you know, it took a while, but it took this huge catalyst from people like Panty and, you know, these activists that really brought the country forward and brought it into a space where we knew it could be. Same with women's rights. You know, it's not an overnight thing, but there's always this need for this huge catalyst. And unfortunately, George Floyd is that catalyst, I hope, you know. And I'm so relieved that it was videoed, you know, that didn't happen, that man, and no one saw it. And I just think the whole thing is so painful, and I can't imagine what his family are going through. I can't imagine what it's like to, like, how could we ever process? Yeah. I could never process somebody dying that way. Yeah. You know, and it's just absolutely horrific. Yeah. It's absolutely horrific, and we just have to listen. We have to just educate and listen. Everybody can do that. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing that. Yeah, okay, you may not have power, you know, in the police force. You may not have, you know, strength in a political way, but you can have a couple of conversations with people. Yeah. You can start really reading. You can share, you know, stuff online. We all have these marketing tools now, you know, personally, that we can share as much as we can.
Yeah, it's not staying quiet, isn't it? Even though I think, you know, it's a white problem, but we're scared of saying the wrong thing, and yeah, we probably will, but you know, we need to just listen, like you say, and just try and educate ourselves into understanding this problem.
Yeah, and I think the issue is that we've sort of prioritized being scared of saying the wrong thing and equating that to someone being scared for their life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know. Again, our privilege has us scared to say the wrong thing, and we know that, you know, it's a real issue, you know. Yeah. But like, yeah, you know, like we just have to keep talking about it.
Yeah,
we just have to keep having the conversations. We have to keep making sure that we, you know, words have power. Like, saying something that is disrespectful or putting somebody in a box, you don't know what you've done to that person in that day, in that moment, you know. Like, the power of words is so crazy. And especially, you know, in the classical music world, I really got into that bubble of being like, there's a huge problem here, and there is, but because you get into the bubble of classical music world, you sort of forget, okay, no, this problem is actually worldwide. It's ridiculous. And it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, you know, and I just feel that we have such an onus, that the responsibility is ours. It's ours, you know, to do something, to do whatever you can in your own space, to just try and do something, you know.
Obviously, yeah, words are incredibly strong, but I mean, so are pictures, and you know, I think some of the photography that's actually coming out is so powerful, isn't it? I mean, how do you view that as a photographer yourself? Like
it's the whole idea of a picture speaking 1,000 words, you know. And then you've got someone like Obama standing and, you know, really getting behind this movement because of the progress he made in that country. And visually, you know, social media is so visual. We need to see these pictures. We need to see the protests. And with lockdown, it's kind of tricky to sort of get into a public space to, you know, to really document what's happening. And you're noticing there's a bit of a lack of news, you know, formal news broadcasting around the protests, and especially in London. But the images are so powerful. And to be honest, one of the most powerful images I saw was I think it was the Miami police force, I could be wrong, the Miami police force, when the riots approached the police station, that with most of the other police stations, the police were outside of barricades and weapon gear and everything, and defense gear, whereas in Miami, the police were on their knees with placards, you know, saying basically, please forgive us, you know.
Yeah.
And that one image can go across a whole nation, a whole world, you know, to communicate something really solid, really progressive, you know. And photography is so powerful at the moment. Like I've always said the best photographers in the world are war photographers, because they put themselves in danger to capture the catalysts of change, you know.
And can I ask you then, sorry to interrupt, can I ask you then, like, how, you know, when you were younger, when did you know you wanted to be a photographer, and did you always find photographs really powerful? Is that a connection you've always had?
Oh God, yeah. Like I'm dyslexic as hell, so I used to always just flick through the pictures all the time. Like family photographs, oh my God, like, you know, like the old sepia images and stuff like that. I was just always going through them. Like my nana lived with me, you know, when I was a kid, and she just had these archives of images, and I was just obsessed with them, you know, and what they meant, and the time, and how different everything looked. And, you know, yeah, it's something that really did get into my head very early. But like photography, I've always said, is like this holistic thing that kind of happened with me, because I just always had my camera there. It was never like a decision that I was like, okay, I'll take my camera with me now. It was always in my bag. So just this creep with the camera all the time, you know. But I remember, like, I went when I was about 16, and I went to on a charity trip to Romania with my school, and we worked within an orphanage, and that was probably one of the most powerful things. And I remember I had my camera there, and I started realizing, okay, you know, I'm able to really document what's happening here. And then I came home and I uploaded all the images, and the computer crashed the following day. And I'll never forget the devastation in me, you know. I was just like, oh my God. It was awful, you know, it was absolutely awful. So I absolutely achieved nothing with that, but I remember how much it meant to me that I felt like I'd caught information in a picture, you know.
And how did you become like a classical music photographer? How did that come about?
Well, I think when it comes to photography, if you want a career, you need to go into niche. And again, that happened very naturally, because I just started photographing what I knew. I was working like loads of different jobs, like because I was training to be a musician. Being a musician, being on stage, I was like, oh, you know, it just didn't feel like it should, you know, the way everyone talked about this feeling of being on stage. I was like, no, you know, I'm not supposed to be here, but I want to be in this space. So I was able to stay in that space with my camera. And
you were training to be a singer, is that right?
Yeah, I was. And
do you think that's why you have such a draw to the opera world?
I definitely feel like I'm always very clear in saying, like, I was never a musician, I was a music student, because I don't feel I got that far. Like, I personally could not do what most of our clients do. So the admiration and empathy I have for them is absolutely enormous. So I think that's really useful when I'm photographing them. So I do gel with singers pretty well. Like, I absolutely love working with singers, and I love working with instrumentalists of all kinds, you know. Like, our clients are quite wide ranging within, you know, and then I also adore working with like the administrators and the people who make it happen, you know, as well, because I'm like, okay, what is working in your head to make you like this? You know, most of those people would have trained as some musician as well, so we'd have that in common, that we ended up saying no, but we still want to stay in this space. So,
and I think like as someone that's been lucky enough to have you as a photographer working with me, and I
lucky
mean,
enough for you to hire me.
No, but like, I mean, you do have this brilliant way with you. Like, you really put the person at ease. Because I mean, I'm not a natural in front of the camera. Like, I just freeze completely and do the weird smile and all that. You just have such a brilliant way of making people relax and feel comfortable, and that's a real gift, you know. I mean, and I think what you do for a lot of musicians I know, you know, have had you photograph them. And you know, you're not just a photographer. I've said this to you before. You know, you're such a promoter, and you know, you just get behind musicians and really help, you know, push us out there, help us with the planning of things. And I mean, it's a really special thing to have, you know, you're not just booking a photographer, it's a whole package. And especially now with Sophie as well, so, you know, with Martial Light Studios, it's an amazing business. And I mean, tell me how that started. How did it come about?
First of all, thank you. That's really nice. How did Martial Light Studio come about? Well, we set I've been working as a photographer for about 13 years. How long now? About 13 years now, which is a bit weird to say out loud. It's very strange. When I moved to London about 4 years ago, and I was wanting to move here and while I was moving, in the process of sort of building this life here, I met Sophie, and we set our company up about a year later. So she'd been working in mainstream design, and she was working with the bigger agencies in London and working with all sorts of bigger clients, and she really wanted to set up her own studio. And again, holistically, it ended up happening because my photography clients started hiring Sophie to do design, and then we were like, okay, we need to do this because we both want to own our company and we both want to build this. So Sophie quit her job and we went to Cuba for 3 weeks and planned the whole company in that space of time. And we came back with our feet in the ground and started running, you know, with it. And we were so lucky, like we were just so lucky at the beginning, and we were, you know what I mean, all the way through, and we still are. We have the most amazing clients, like yourselves, and they're so loyal, you know, and we've always tried to go above and beyond for everybody, because I think it's really important. I've always seen the classical music industry as an enormous company, and we all have to work together to keep it alive and keep it thriving, you know.
And that really comes across. That really comes across as a client's point of view, you know. But you know, you I mean, I'm constantly asking advice about various things, and you guys are great at coming back, and I really appreciate that. You know, it really
well,
is.
I think it's all about connection. Like, if we don't know the answer, I'm sure there's somebody we know that might know the answer, or might know somebody who knows the answer, and like that's how you get everything done, you know. Like, you know, we're not islands, you know, like we have to collaborate. We get nothing done on our own, you know, absolutely nothing done.
And tell me, like, how is the studio doing at the moment, like with the coronavirus pandemic and stuff? Has that affected your business?
Oh God, yeah. Like it was. I have to say that we were extremely busy, right up until the point of this like metaphorical axe sort of coming down, and I think we just had to catch our breath for a couple of days. But you see, we do have a design aspect, which we were at a bit of a weird advantage that, you know, you could never have predicted. We set up a home office, and I absolutely love the home office. I just love it so much, you know. I love being at home. I love working from home. And the only time that we are working when we're not here is outside when we're doing a shoot. So we already had the setup. Obviously photo shoots completely stopped because we use hair and makeup, and there's huge restrictions on that at the moment. So that was a big thing. But design, we've kept going. And we've been working with our clients, and we reached out to all our clients to just say, you know, we're here. If you are trying to come up with something innovative, if you're trying to, you know, just let us know. We will do everything we can to support you. And you know what I mean, I've been collaborating as much as I can through the whole time. You know, and like we stayed busy. We've stayed just connecting, you know what I mean? We've kept ourselves really busy and really focused.
So tell me, have you been doing anything in particular during lockdown, project-wise?
I started working with Opera Wire. We did a collaboration, and it was opera in the time of COVID. And I worked with David Salazar there to get these interviews out from these leading artists in the industry to talk about their experience during lockdown and stuff like that. Another thing we did was we completely immersed ourselves in the community, which we've never done. And as Londoners, you're not really known for that at all. So we started work. Sophie's a lot of experience in mainstream design as well. So we started connecting with our local businesses to see, you know, do you need any help repositioning yourself during this time? And we absolutely loved that, and we've been doing a lot of that sort of work as well. So it's been really enjoyable. And then of course our cat went missing, and it became a whole neighborhood, you know, search party. So, you know, we've really sort of steeped ourselves in what's around us, which we've never ever done, you know, in the real local area. You know, we're always been sort of going straight into the city or whatever, and now we're sort of much more focused on this space here around us. And it's just been really positive, you know, and I just need to wrap myself up in a big blanket of positivity as much as I can, you know.
But you have to tell us, is your cat okay? Did he come home?
He's fine. He's absolutely fine. And we, you know, it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. You know, he went missing, and we printed out, you know, a ton of leaflets and posters, and went everywhere. And I can't believe that I'm talking like this about my cat, because I'm a dog person. So, but yeah, so basically the whole place started looking for him, which was amazing. And then we forgot that we have another ginger cat, so we were getting loads of calls about the ginger cat the other one, so we had to lock him up while we went looking for the other one. And it was crazy. But you know what, the amount of connection with our neighbors, they were so amazing. They were all ringing, they were all looking, and it was just one of these weird things where we actually ended up, you know, we've been living here for ages and we never got to know people. Now we know everybody. Like when it comes to the actual lockdown, when it happened, our clients took an awful hit, you know, like a really awful hit. Like we were working with the Fesh Kill, for example, and we've been working with Laura Gilson, who's incredible in every way. And we were working with her on the rebrand for the Fesh, which was amazing. That was a dream job for me. The Fesh means so much to me, you know. As does for every Irish person of music, you know, and it was just really great to do that. And then of course that got cancelled, and it was the relaunch of that. So then we started talking to her, okay, what can we do, you know, how can we help? And then we you know, we worked together, a lot of us, to sort of come up with the virtual Fesh idea, which worked really well. And you know, we'll come back next year, you know. And it's to get, I think we all went through this awful grief at the very beginning. You know, it was a grief, you know, so many people actually lost people. They were grieving in the traditional sense, and then they couldn't grieve in the traditional sense because, you know, how were you supposed to do the traditional things that keep us sane as a human society during lockdown when, you know, you have to say goodbye to somebody? You know, it was horrific. And then so many people were grieving their careers, you know, and it felt like to many people that they were actually grieving their entire career, and that they were going to have to reinvent themselves. And it was just such a storm, you know. So we definitely sort of cut it off, sectioned it, and, you know, we did 3 to 4 days. Like personally, like we had our wedding coming up and that had to be cancelled, you know. So like we took 4 days to just sit on the couch, eat shit, watch shit, and not apologize and not talk to anybody. And I was like, nobody is pulling us out of this misery. And when we're ready to come out of it, we will come out of it. But I was like, you know, that's it. But, you know, like after those 4 days, I was like, great, grand, back to work. You know, we have to keep going here.
And let me ask you, with your career, like, do you have it, because you do a lot of live concert photography as well as the sort of portraits. Yeah. Do you have a preference, or do you get something different out of both of those?
You need a completely different skill set for both, even within the performance. Even the opera concert differentiates hugely. Like in opera, if you're shooting an opera, you have to get yourself out of the equation. You're creating a record, you're creating an archive of this performance, of these performers, of this set design, of this director's, you know, intent on this stage. That's your job. It's not about getting the good angle. It's not about getting, you know, you have to document it, and your only job is to get the lighting, the focus points, and all that right. So your brain becomes like a scientist, where you're just thinking in numbers the whole time, and knowing and having to know what's coming, you know, that's the bit that you're like, oh. But I'll always try and get into the pre-dress, so I have an idea around that. I'll move heaven and earth to get into that. But concerts, it's more about moving, getting a good angle, getting another perspective of an audience member, and then dealing with the light issue of a room. Because in classical music, as you know yourself, you perform so many times in churches with maybe candlelight or whatever, that can be a struggle. But you know, that's where you can't fake it with your equipment. You have to really know what you're doing, you know, so you can get those images. And then portraits, it's way more of a human experience. It's all about, I've said this so many times, respect for the artist, communication and connection, respect. Those things, they're the most important things when it comes to a portrait. So
I know this is a very difficult question to answer. You may not be able to, but are there any particular shoots that you just stick in your head as being really memorable for whatever reason?
Like the last shoot we did was so amazing. We worked with just the last one before lockdown. It was literally a couple of days before it, and everything moved so fast. Was with Solomon Howard, and oh my god, it was an incredible shoot. It was just so, I'm not saying it was incredible, I'm just saying it was an amazing shoot. We did so much, and it was really, really good. Like I've always found that when you're taking a portrait of somebody, the guard just comes down, because there's nobody in the world who is that comfortable with a camera this close to their face. So I have never come away from a shoot not liking somebody, you know. Because, you know, I always think the issues that we have with other people, they're always defense mechanisms, they're always guards, they're always masks of some sort. But my job is to create a safe space in a shoot, and the whole thing is to create that safe space and make sure someone feels comfortable and relaxed and respected in that space, and then we get to see who they are, you know. And I have very rare, like I can't think of any time where I haven't seen that be a positive space and a positive reaction.
And do you have any, I mean, I know things are still kind of in the lockdown phase with the pandemic. Have you any shoots in the diary? Like, are there any countries?
Everything's been rescheduled. So basically the whole focus point that I've been saying to everybody, the only thing we don't have in cement, is the date.
Yeah,
that's the only thing. So we've actually had quite a big surge recently, because many artists are getting out there ahead of the curtain coming back up again, you know, and they want to be ready. So, you know, it takes an amount of time to do a brand job, you know, and when we're doing on a website, so when we're creating that identity, there's a huge amount of preparation for it. A shoot's the same. Like I'll be talking to people 2 months, a month before a shoot, and we'll be planning, we'll be having constant phone calls, constant inspiration chats, constant venue hunting, you know, we do all of that. And we're still doing all of that, you know, we're still doing all that work. And the only thing we don't have is the date. So what I've been doing is that, you know, when you're trying to sort of find your compass through the mess, is to look at, okay, let's divide out the little bits. What am I in control of and what am I not? And when we started listing out all the stuff, the only thing we weren't in control of was the date. And like, let's face it, Beth, there's nothing that we do that's easy. You know, like as people who are self-employed, whether you run your own company as a director or whatever, you know, like we've always had to make work out of air. You know, we've always had to really push through. And yes, the air is thin at the moment. It's different, you know, and it's really, you have to really think a little bit differently. But that's good. You know, it's good to have to think that way and be forced to think a bit different way about everything. But like, let's not pretend it was easy before the lockdown happened. It was really hard.
Yeah.
You know, this, you know, it's being self-employed and being, you know, and generating your own work is difficult. So yeah, you know, like that's the biggest thing I think we have to realize around all this.
Well, Fran, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, but thank you so much for giving me all of this time. It's been such an interesting, informative chat with you. Really
thank you for asking me.
Thank you. Well, look, take care.